don't remember exactly, man. I know I was thinking about the front door.
Okay.
And then I figured, man, why'd I do this, man? Why'd I do this?
He got into the car and he started driving. He got on 94 and he was thinking, I'm just going to leave. And as he was driving, he thought to himself, it's not going to look too good. My parents show up dead in bed, and one of their sons is now out of state. So he then decided to turn around and go back north, back up to Libertyville, and to go home.
Are you sorry that your parents are dead, Bill?
Yes and no. Yes, because what I had to deal with them was gone. And then no, because it really got my sister.
Any time over this last 15 years, have you ever had any discussion with Kurt about it?
You know,
The subject has never come up?
I've never told nobody. If I had told anybody anything about it, it had to have been in a drunken stupor, which ain't unusual for me to be in a drunken stupor. That's the only way I could deal with it. I mean, it's eaten me up for 15 years. I really don't give a about my life right now. I mean, if you want to look at the way I've lived.
As a result of him being locked up for 30 days in a Monroe County jail, he actually dried out. He had no opportunity for the drugs. He had no opportunity for the alcohol. What he did have an opportunity for was now dealing with the guilt.
How much can you drink? I can't tell you how much I've drank in 15 years. As much as I can get my hands on.
When you're used to living in a drugged out, boozed up state, going cold turkey can be a rude awakening. For most people, it's a daily struggle. But at first, Billy seemed oddly at peace.
He was willing to come back and face the music. And for us, we're in Key West. We flew into Miami. We had Bill in the car for that 161-mile drive. His attitude was relaxed, cracked jokes, humorous at times. Said, hey, Chuck, could I drive? Kind of like the weight of the world was lifted off of his shoulder. He was finally able to release that pressure.
But police aren't home free.
Right away, when you know that you have a confession, one of the things that the defense is going to attack is how that confession was obtained. You know you're in for a beating, but felt very confident that we were going to come out with a guilty plea.
But when Billy lawyers up, it's clear he has no intention of going down quietly.
The defense based its argument on the idea that the confession was coerced. They believe that Billy's long history of substance abuse made him a poor candidate for police interrogation and eventually agreed to say something that was not true.
The defense tried to turn this entire case over on its head and suggest that Kurt, the oldest boy, was the one who had committed the crime.
Billy's inner brat was rearing its ugly head. After blaming his parents for sending him into a fatal rage, Billy decided he'd try and sandbag his brother. Everyone in town braced for the final showdown.
After all the years of questions, the town of Libertyville braces itself for the final chapter in the Rouse murder mystery.
Those emotions were there and as prevalent as they would have been if the trial had taken place a year or 2 years after the shootings. Nothing had been resolved yet.
Bruce and Darlene Rouse, millionaires in Libertyville. Everybody knew of them. Everybody heard of them. This was the big media case. This is something that people had talked about for 15 years.
It was the story of the summer. A family had literally destroyed itself. The parents were dead. The sister dies in a car accident. The two surviving family members wind up pointing the finger at each other.
Investigators' first challenge is getting Kurt to court.
Kurt was living in San Francisco after the 15 years, and he was very hurt by all this. Everywhere he went in Libertyville after the murders, people would point at him, people would whisper, there's the murderer. And he said that hurt him very much. To that day, it still hurt him very much. He didn't want to come back. He said, you know, you got his confession, you don't need me.
But the state knows Kurt's testimony will be critical.
You need those questions answered because so many people have those questions. You know, could Kurt have done the murders? What did Kurt know? Did Kurt help Billy clean up?
On July 31st, 1996, the murder trial of Billy Rouse opens in Lake County, Illinois. The prosecution starts with the most damaging evidence, Billy's account of the murder.
He started from the beginning and went through the entire night, the entire series of events, pretty much without having to be asked questions. He was very matter-of-fact about it.
There were so many details that he gave in the confession. Again, not only things that corroborated or supported what we already knew, but details that he gave us that we were unaware of, that clearly he was the guy who committed the crime.
The jury, they were allowed to see that confession. They saw there was no coercion there. They saw that Bill was in his comfort zone, smoking cigarettes, drinking coffee, and that it was a fluent conversation. But the proof's in the pudding.
Then, it's Kurt Rouse's turn to face his baby brother. Everyone wonders if the tables could turn.
All the gossip in the area was all that Kurt was the bad guy. Kurt was the wolf man, and he had killed his parents.
When Kurt came into the courtroom, it was the first time that they had laid eyes on each other for 10 years or more. And Kurt walked over to the defense table and put his hand down on Billy's shoulder.
The defense paints Kurt as a shiftless teen who had been exiled from the home and was at war with his parents. But in the end, his tearful testimony only helps the prosecution.
The defense is trying to make it look like Kurt is the killer who is letting his brother swing in criminal charges, and here Kurt is forlorn.
Billy never told him that he had killed their parents. You know, Kurt knew it wasn't me. You know, and it probably wasn't Robin. It was probably Billy.
While the lawyers were up arguing in front of the judge, Kurt is sitting there by himself. He looks over on the edge of the witness stand, sees a picture of his sister. He holds it and then holds it closer to his chest and looks at the picture and starts sobbing. It was, I think, a moment that probably told the jurors more about Kurt Rouse and the kind of person that he was than anything else that I ever could have told to the jury.
The jury deliberates for nearly 6 hours before returning with their verdict. Guilty. At his defense table, Billy remains unmoved.
There was no reaction, no. Then people who were in the courtroom said, he didn't blink, he didn't flinch.
The mood in the courtroom and in the small town of Libertyville is equally somber.
There's no victory in anything like that. There's only justice. And the community was relieved that it was over. Again, just happy to have it done with.
I just had to say to myself, that is just, it's sad. It's just devastating that 2 human lives were lost.
Billy's situation, I think he was just a little spoiled kid that was upset because his mom wouldn't let him lead the lifestyle that he wanted to lead, and he made a really bad decision.
Unlike most family homicides, the Rouse murders weren't motivated by greed or revenge. They were just desperate, evil acts by a very disturbed boy. The Rouse house became known as the Murder Mansion, traded hands a few times, and then, in 2002, spontaneously burned to the ground. For True TV, I'm Dominic Dunn.